Welcome to episode 400 of the Best Damn Coach podcast. And today I'm going to be sharing what 400 episodes of this podcast have taught me that I could have never told you on episode 1. Welcome to episode 400 of the Best Damn Coach podcast. 400 freaking episodes, y'all. I've honestly been sitting, obviously, I saw this milestone was coming on the horizon when I was batching for our summertime. And I honestly I've totally resisted recording for this episode, trying to figure out what to say, what would be like quote unquote worthy content of this milestone. I should have a big party. I should go in studio and record live. I should have some cool guests. Needs to be shareable because I want more eyeballs on the podcast. Like these were all the things that I was thinking in my brain. So I was freaking overthinking this episode, to be frank. And what I realized is that all of those things that I just referenced really made it about me. And it's not about me. That's why I began the podcast was about you. And at the end of the day, that's what I want. Let's let the main thing keep being the main thing. And I've realized that anytime I get to this weird place in my business where I'm overthinking and over strategizing, which I am known to do, I have to fall back to the one thing God put me on this earth to help people and bring them good, important lessons that are part of my journey. And honestly, this is what it is. It's about you. And so I decided that today, to mark 400 episodes, I am going to share what 400 episodes has taught me that I could have never told you at episode 1. So definitely get your notes out, put your seatbelts on. Definitely some no BS today that I'm going to deliver. And I really do hope that what I share inside this episode makes it shareable enough that you feel called to drop the link into a chat, into a Facebook group, into a circle community, post it on your stories, because my heart and soul has been behind not just today's episode, but 400 episodes of consistently showing up to deliver free content. And I'm going to talk about what that's about too. And so I'm genuinely so grateful you're here. And if you're brand new to the show and you just happen to stumble upon episode 400 as your first one, welcome to the Best Damn Coach podcast. I'm Amanda and I'm your host. And it's crazy to think that 400 episodes is here. This isn't a fanfare episode. It's just about the truth of what the last, I think, I don't even know the first date that my first episode was released, because to tell you a few interesting things, never gone back and listened to any of my episodes, because once it's out there, it's irrelevant. I don't want to be critical of myself. I don't want to overanalyze. I just try to show up in truth and honesty. I've said like way too many times on the show over the 400 episodes, but truthfully, messy is the way. And so that's exactly how we're going to do it, as we continue. And I love when I have guests on the show, which I'm not going to have today, and they're worried about the dogs barking, kids crying, whatever interruptions. And that is what makes this show human. And that's what I love about podcasts when I personally listen to them. As I was preparing, I had this screenshot that came up in my mind's eye, and I was picturing the closet at my old house, which is where this podcast began. After having a realization that I was missing in my business kind of a steady way to connect with my audience that wasn't social media directly. Social media could be kind of a branch that leads to it. I realized that I am best at verbal processing. I way better at talking and delivering coaching or delivering content than I am in writing content. And so it felt natural that a podcast would be the way that would suit me best in order to reach my ideal clients. Turns out I was right. And I didn't know a thing about podcasting. And to be frank, my budget was minimal. I knew that I wasn't going to do the fancy equipment. I didn't even know if I liked podcasting yet. So I picture myself snuggled into my closet, kind of nestled between clothes to drown out the noise. I had the old school Apple headset plugged into my ears, and then the cable right into my phone. And I recorded my podcast just on the video or on the voice recording app that comes pre installed on your iPhone. And in the beginning, there was no video. I wasn't looking at a camera. It was just my voice. And I probably started and stopped that first episode a zillion times. And I was coaching myself into these thoughts like, it doesn't matter, Amanda. You're going to reach the people that it resonates with. Don't be so critical of yourself. Just show up and get it done. Done is better than perfect. Like everything you think you would need to know to get that first episode out. And it felt like such a huge milestone. And it was, right? Just to say, okay, my voice is in the world. But truthfully, why most podcasters fail is they talk themselves out of the content, or they don't create consistency. And I think that's been such a piece of this puzzle, is just finding the way that consistency matters for you. And so what I decided to do for today's episode is zone in, after giving much reflection in my journey, on the four things for 400. I think I've learned through this journey that I would not have been able to share with you on lesson or on episode one. I mean, truthfully, the podcast started out as a life coaching and health coaching podcast. So if you've dug deep into the archives, you will hear me talking about protein and fitness and health mindset and all those things. And then we shifted into talking about health and fitness and business, and that wasn't working for me. And so was rebranded several years ago. I don't know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, into the Best Damn Coach podcast. And this is definitely my sweet spot. And so I thought I would give you kind of the high level things that I've realized about this journey, and also make sure, of course, that they're tangible, so that you walk away going, dang, yes. I hope you feel seen and heard from this episode, but I also hope you know that you have homework to do. And this isn't just something you listen to, it's something you go out and apply. So I am asking you as a thank you for maybe me putting out the content that I do for free every week, twice a week on the show. I have such a big ask this week since it is a special episode. Would you please take the time to just screenshot this episode, put it on your stories, tag me, share it with someone that you feel like would really be, would benefit from the content? Okay, so let's dive in. Here is the first lesson that I have learned over the years that I could not have shared with you on one, is that certainty sells more than strategy. I'm going to say that again. Certainty sells more than strategy. I spent a long time thinking in the beginning that I had a strategy problem. And so I would face what many of you do, this shiny object temptation of all of these other coaches that maybe seemed like they were doing it better, faster, easier than I would. And I was constantly ping ponging around. I thought I had the wrong offer. I thought maybe the wrong niche. I was selling it wrong, wrong price, wrong funnel. And what I know now is that when I was struggling to sell my coaching services, it was definitely not a strategy problem. Any strategy works, friends. If you love social media and you want to sell from social media, do the thing. If you want to sell from a podcast, do it. If you want to sell from paid ads, do it. If you want to sell from webinar, do it. It's not an issue. You could see examples of coaches doing any strategy and is making it work. And you're probably hit with ads of every single coach saying, do it this way. With that all said, it was never a certainty problem. Or it wasn't a strategy problem. It was 100% a certainty problem for me. And here's what I mean by that. If you, or when you believe in what you are selling with your whole heart, like you are the first person that was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, I want it. And when you have done the reps and you have seen the results and you know in your bones that this work changes people, selling becomes a different conversation altogether. And people feel that certainty when you talk about it, and they buy it before they even buy your offer, because you are so compelling and your passion is exuded through what you do. What I see and what I felt for myself is that that certainty doesn't exist. And so we search for something else to change the circumstance rather than changing the thought and the belief about what you're already delivering. So the practical piece on how to fix this is, if you're not selling right now, you're not talking about your coaching services, you're not finding a consistent way to give calls to action, you have to ask yourself this really important question. What's wrong with, what's missing with my certainty? why am I not showing up to the party and talking about things? If somebody asks me, why am I downplaying it? When I go to my stories, why am I never talking about my services? And it could be that maybe your price point is ahead of your confidence. And so what that might look like is pulling your price down so it rattles off your tongue and you go and you sell 5 to 10 people to build more reps, build more testimonials and feel so damn proud of the work that it makes selling at the next price point easier. Right? So maybe you need more reps before you own that investment. And that is okay. Maybe your offer is missing something. Maybe you don't know if it's actually working. And so you've got to find a way to get more feedback through the process to make sure you're confident about it. This is how certainty gets built over time. You got to get your ego out of the way. You got to let go of looking at what other coaches are doing and meet yourself where you actually are, not where you think you should be. For me, your strategy will work when your certainty is real. I had a client in the BDC recently post in our Facebook community that she had somebody interested in what is her small buy offer, which is her price point around $250. And she said, but she wants to get on a call to talk about it. That's a waste of my time. And my ask or question of her is like, how many of you of these have you sold? She's like, only a couple. Great. How many would you like to sell? Tons. So would hopping on a 15-minute call to sell a $250 thing get you confidence and practice and reps to match your marketing? And it's not really about selling the $250 thing. It's about delivering so well in the 250 that it turns into a next step. So we have to just look at where we're at in order to get to where we are going. Lesson 2, it's giving kind of Field of Dreams if you've seen the movie, but here is something I did not realize in episode 1, 2, 3 is build it and they will come is actually a lie. And I am sorry to be the one to deliver that. Well, sorry, not sorry. I don't love that so many coaches have built their business plan around this concept. I share the story of a colleague of mine who hired somebody to build out their fancy funnel, their course, paid over 30K, and just assumed that they would come. Didn't do any market research, didn't really know, test it, see if even the program they were offering is something needed. Sold two $297 tickets, made only $600, still was basically 29.4 in the hole, and basically gave up and walked away. So I see this a lot. A coach creates an offer, builds a beautiful program, maybe even records some modules. They're like, oh, I'm going to do a course. Course is like great. It's going to be easy money. And then nothing comes and they tell themselves something is wrong with that offer. Honestly, the offer is probably fine. The problem is you built it and expected the right people to just find it, like out of thin air. But the truth is, the reason build it and they will come is a lie, in my opinion, is the practical take home from this is you have to go uh, to where your people are. If you're not selling right now, or rather, excuse me, if you're just hanging out in your home and hoping people are going to show up, you have to go to where you are not known. And this could be organically, right? You could go pitch yourself to be on podcasts. You could go leverage social media. You could go network. There's so many ways, but you could also do this through paid traffic in communities, whatever it is. But you have to think wherever my ideal client is spending time, that's where I need to be around them. You have to show up there so that they see you're even in their world. And you have to do really good at articulating the expertise you have into words that they understand, which is probably something that I probably should have put on this thing. You guys hear me say this all the time, so forgive the redundancy, but most of you are great, brilliant coaches. You get great results, but you don't know how to translate that expertise into words that people understand. So it just feels like you're speaking into the void, like you're this hidden gem, and you're really not. You're great, but you haven't taken the time to understand how to speak like 101 status to somebody that's not in the coaching space. So the hard part for so many coaches is you come into this because you want to do the coaching, but sales and marketing has to be a part of this in order to be better. That's why I'm always talking about developing the two skill sets, coaching mastery and also entrepreneurship. You need both. And so they're going to find you because you kept showing up in places that stretched you, that where you kept talking about your work, where otherwise they wouldn't have stumbled across you. And that is the job that we have. Lesson number 3 that I would not have been able to tell you in episode 1 is that you have to stop measuring your chapter 3 against someone else's chapter 20. And I think it's actually quite threatening and deadly out there in the coaching space. It was probably something that killed my progress for a few years, and I didn't realize it. I remember really clearly hopping onto a webinar, and it was with Amy Porterfield. It was Zoom. It was years ago. And literally, I couldn't get in because she had met her quota of 1,000 people in the webinar. She probably didn't even expect that. And so that was my standard. So when I had 5 people show up to a workshop, I told myself the story I was failing. And that I also told myself I needed this gigantic audience to make lots of money. Y'all, my email list still hasn't gotten above 4,000 really, of I would say qualified 4,000. And so if you're constantly watching other coaches and measuring yourself against where they are, it does create this, I'm not doing it right, I'm not good enough. And can we also talk about a lot of people are BSing you out there? Or here's the thing that really pisses me off. They're like, come along with me this year as I make 500K. I'm scaling to 500K. But if you're actively telling people what to do as you're scaling, then you don't actually have proof that it works. I'm not going to teach you something that I don't know works. So you have to be aware of who you're taking in. This is why I would personally never hire a therapist or coach that hasn't done what I've done or want to do, rather. It's why I no longer work with mentors who don't live in a happy marriage with children, because that's my life. I want to learn from somebody who navigates those waters and runs a successful business. It's why I want a healthy, fit doctor to learn from. If I would hire a personal trainer or a health coach, I want them to model the thing that I want. So please be aware of that. I did not realize the significance of what it's like to work with somebody who's living the life that you desire and not just running a business that you desire, because they could be running a business, but they don't have relationships, they have no boundaries, and it's a nightmare on the inside. I've met a lot of those people. So your business is your business. It's in your own season. And the fastest way to slow down your growth, in my opinion, is to keep trying to run someone else's race. Whew. Okay. Like sweating after that one. All right. Lesson number 4. The coaches who are last aren't the coaches who are last. How do I say this? The coaches who last are the most patient and also the most profitable. I've watched a lot of talented coaches leave this industry over my 10 years, and some of them were amazing coaches. And it wasn't that they weren't talented, it was that they put this timeline on themselves and had this unrealistic expectation of how quickly they could scale and grow, or maybe weren't willing to do the things that it took. They expected immediate gratification, didn't know how to delay the gratification, or they were so hard-headed and uncoachable, or had such big ego, they wouldn't learn from somebody else ahead of them. I've seen this time and time again. And when month 6 comes and the business isn't where many people imagine, they tell themselves it's not working. But truthfully, what I see is that they're putting energy in the wrong places. Like they haven't really learned business. And they're kind of running out of patience before the compounding of their efforts starts to bear fruit. And I think this idea of delayed gratification is a skill that nobody teaches you. Results in business are not linear. It's jumbled. It's all over the place. And tomorrow, you never know. You could like hit a home run that you weren't expecting. And so I see the coaches like myself that are here 5, 7, 10 years in. They stayed. They kept going. Even when it was slow, they didn't panic. They kept refining, tweaking, adjusting. And consistency over time is actually a strategy. So to me, this is a last woman standing kind of game. I'm not here for short-term intensity, and I'm not going to coach you into that. I want you to build something that's sustainable, so you really build a career out of it and not just an overnight success story, which are pretty much not true anyways. I might have said 4 in the beginning. I forgot I added 2 lessons that I wanted to throw in last minute. So we got two more. Bonus. Lesson 5. I think that your best marketing is inside your client sessions. And I did not figure this out in the beginning. I tried to be super fancy and coachy and make up all of the marketing words that I would use on sales pages and content, even inside my coaching sessions. And call me a slow learner, thick headed. I don't know what it is. Coaches spend so much time trying to figure out how, like, out their content strategy and coming up with ideas when literally in a coaching session, the words that your client says are exactly what we need to put on our sales pages, on about our podcast episodes, on our content. So they're telling you the things they're struggling with. We don't need to take them and make them pretty. We take them and we repurpose them as they say them. And then the results that they get from coaching sessions, that is the magic. So it's like your marketing is all in one inside of a coaching session. There's so much power in that because a client who gets a real result then tells someone, they renew, they become a testimonial that does more selling for you. And this is the faster track to any funnel. It's going to be the most consistent, sustainable. So if you want more clients, two things. You should obsess over the clients you have right now. Go all in on their results because that word of mouth will pay dividends, and genuinely transforming their life is going to become this walking billboard. But also obsess over the words and the language you use and they use inside those client strategy or inside those client sessions. They are a gold mine. And I used to dismiss them because I used to be so like, new clients, more strategy. And that one client can just be like the gift that keeps on giving inside of your business, not just for referrals, but extending the lifetime value of your clients. We just had a client who's been in the BDC for a year. She hasn't been there for a year. She's been in for 10 months. She's due to renew in 2 months. She literally, after our implementation event recently, emailed that day and was like, I want in another year. How do I do that? And for me, that is the greatest compliment to the work that we do. And lastly, I've heard this a lot in my life, but it didn't really click until business, until entrepreneurship. But I see it so clearly now, and that is how you do one thing is how you do everything. So I'll give you an example. You guys have heard me talk about this year. I set a goal to run 1,000 miles, and that means that at the time you hear this, it's the end of June. I have already successfully gotten over the 500 hump. So I'm more than halfway done, which seems crazy because when I started, I was like, well, this is gonna be a lot. And to be frank, right now it's about 110 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit in Arizona every single day. And this goal is getting really hard. I have to get up early. I don't like treadmill running. I could, but I get pretty burnt out by that. So I'm trying to maintain consistency outside and just be in the sunshine, but it's getting hot and it's hard. And the other day when I was running, I really wanted to quit. And I was like, what does this really matter? And the reality is how you do one thing is how you do everything. And for me, this goal is about setting something and saying I'm going to follow through on it when nobody else is watching. And this has been something I've done my whole life. And I'm sharing it publicly for inspiration and accountability. But there are mornings where I don't want to run. My legs are tired. The bed is like, stay here. It's so cozy. But I run anyways because I told myself I was going to do this. And I know that when I follow through on myself, the pride and the confidence I get from myself privately is directly connected to how I show up in the world. When you keep promises you make to yourself, even the small, tiny, unsexy ones that aren't necessarily running 1,000 miles, you build a kind of internal credibility that shows up in everything you do. You become a woman who follows through on herself consistently. It shows up in how you run your business, how you parent, how you do marriage, how you do friendship, how you do fitness. So if you notice that you are someone who constantly quits on themselves, who says they're going to do something and doesn't, this is the sabotage in your business. Like you don't need to worry about the other five. I guarantee this is part of what's holding you back. Because this will be how you handle a slow month. This will be how you handle a month where your roster is massive. This will be how you follow up with client leads every day. It's how you will take the next step, even though you don't feel like it. I think the foundation of any business, not just a coaching business, is integrity with yourself. I definitely did not know that on day one of recording a podcast. Do the thing you said you do, even when nobody is watching. And honestly, especially when nobody's watching, because you are the one that it matters to. You are going to be the one that directly experiences the fruits of that. And the thing that helps me do it when nobody's watching is one, a vision I have for like a much further along vision for my life, health, fitness, getting up and down with my grandkids. I'm going to live till I'm 120. That's my number. But in business, it's living a lifestyle I want during retirement, like paying for my kids, weddings, being able to vacation with them and pay for them and their families to go on vacation with me. That is what keeps me going. On mornings, I'm just like you. I don't want to do it. It doesn't sound good. I'd rather be watching Netflix. I'd rather be in the pool with the kids. Like we're no different. But self integrity is everything in business. I did not realize that that would have such a key influence on building a business over time. And so for me, those are the six things that I would not have been able to share on episode 400, to be frank, or on episode 123. I am okay to admit that if you would go back and listen to probably the first 100 episodes, they were pretty fluffy. I probably said all the mainstream things. I was developing a sense of self. I was figuring out like the dragons in the industry. I was figuring out who I was going to be as a practitioner, what mattered, what didn't. And so I don't think I had the guts to say some of the things, in those episodes that I can now. And I think that's going to come along for you as well. The more you get the reps and the more you find yourself. Some of those things that you're so afraid to say, that you're like, oh my gosh, it's going to ostracize me. People are going to reject me. You have to say those things. It's not a if I should. It's like, I would encourage you, say them with all your might, because those are going to be the exact things that bring the right people to you. Because if they don't like it, then they're going to go somewhere else, and you want them to go somewhere else anyways. So if you're listening today and like summer is treating you so well in your business, I'm so pumped for you. Way to show up consistently. But for anybody who's listening to this and just feeling like a little bit of a hard season, distracted season, I just want to remind you that because it feels hard right now is not evidence that it's not working. The gap between where you are in this moment right now as you listen and where you want to be is not a sign you chose the wrong path. Absolutely not. It's completely normal. And it's a predictable part of building something that really matters to you. You're not behind. It's that you're in a chapter. You got to keep going, hold the vision, keep taking action, show up consistently. So here we sit, 400 episodes in, and I am convinced more than ever right now that in this coaching world, we need real, we need raw, we need coaches like you who are committed to actually coaching. You're not in it to make a quick buck. We need coaches who are patient, who are committed to doing this work well. And that's why you're here, I believe. And I am so grateful. And when I think back to the progression of what this podcast has looked like, it's proof that where you start is not where you end. And I know my journey, my story isn't done either. And it's proof that you can start messily in a closet on headphones and turn into buying a fancy DSLR camera, doing every podcast on video, launching a second limited series podcast. But the one thing I also know is that the impact that this podcast has had on my business is immeasurable. It does so much heavy lifting for me. It helps solve one really important part for me, and that is like serve people. We put funds, like financial funds and time resources into this show every month. It takes a great deal of planning and recording on my part that I don't directly get paid for, because I do believe in having a part of my business ecosystem that serves people who I may never know and serves people who may actually never buy a paid for service. But I also know that this has done a lot of heavy lifting for some of the most amazing clients that are in my world. They discovered me on this show. This show taught them things they never thought. This show has brought them value they never expected. It brought them into a small ticket bite offer. They experience what it's like to come beyond the show into my world, and now are some of the most amazing humans I've met. And I get to have a front row seat to watching them break through profit milestones they never thought, replace their corporate salaries, be on some of the biggest shows and stages, release books, release podcasts for themselves. So for me, man, like I'm not going away from podcasting because it does so much work for us. And it's why I released a limited series podcast, because I love it. I love sitting here staring into a camera, which I envision to be all of you, and just serving. And not all the time do I get to hear back on every single episode, but it's really cool when I get a message from a listener in my DMs or via email about how an episode transformed them, led them somewhere new, and really just met them where they were at in that moment, in that day, to create massive aha moments. And so if that's you today, I'm so grateful. I would love to hear from you. And again, my big ask in exchange for these 400 episodes is one of the most effective ways for for any podcast to be found is through sharing. And whatever sharing looks like for you, again, just copying the link and sharing it with a friend, or sharing it on your stories so people who follow you can see it. Leaving a review would be amazing. That's so powerful. I love hearing reviews, but anything that you can do to get more eyeballs in front of the show is a great thank you just for the value that we bring on a week to week episode. Big shout out to my team as well, who's a part of this process. Shout out to Tina. She's my online business manager. She does the overview, or, the checking to make sure everything's on time and ready to go out. Frenzy, my VA, who touch points certain parts of this. And a big shout out to Eloisa and her team. She is my podcast producer. She helps edit these episodes, publishes them, gives me great insights, shares monthly metrics so we can see what's resonating and what isn't. Gratefully, it's not just a one-man show. And I'm so grateful for all of the ladies that help me bring all of this content to you on a weekly basis. So again, thank you for being a part of this journey. I'm honored to provide value for you and be a part of your journey. And cheers to, another 1,400. I don't know. We'll see where the journey takes us. So until next week, go coach them up.